Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom warrior Manjusri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagatas' true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Now we will explain the training in application bodhicitta from the words of my perfect teacher. Previously, we introduced aspiration bodhicitta, which, as we all know, includes practices of exchanging self and others, considering others as equal to oneself, and considering others more important than oneself. Then we explained application bodhicitta. Actually, once application bodhicitta arises in our mind stream, regardless of your conduct and behavior, its merit increases day and night continuously. From that moment onward, even while sleeping or being careless, merit continues to arise in quantities equal to space. As we explained in the first chapter of The Way of the Bodhisattva, after application, bodhicitta arises in our mind stream, even when you're not deliberately thinking about liberating beings. Whether you're sleeping or being careless or engaging in other activities, your virtue and merit continuously increase, and the amount of increase is boundless, like space itself. Therefore, each of us, after studying the way of the Bodhisattva, must generate genuine aspiration and application bodhicitta. Once we have application bodhicitta, in our conduct and actual practice, we must benefit beings through the 6 transcendent perfections. As we've explained before, countless Buddhas, not only the greatly compassionate Buddha Shakyamuni, for countless Buddhas, the training of application bodhicitta, meaning the only method to benefit beings, is through the 6 transcendent perfections. The 6 transcendent perfections include generosity, ethics, patience, diligence, concentration, and wisdom. There are 6 transcendent perfections in total, beginning with generosity. Generosity is divided into material giving, Dharma giving, and giving protection from fear. Among these, material giving is further divided into ordinary giving, vast giving, and extremely vast giving. Material giving is categorized this way. First, ordinary giving refers to a handful of tea leaves or a bowl of barley in this world or in Han regions. For example, a bowl of rice or a bag of flour or a piece of clothing, 1 cent, 10 yuan, and so forth. All these material possessions of various sizes that we commonly call external possessions. External possessions other than the body that can be taken off or cut away and given to others. Material gifts to other sentient beings with karmic connection. If one's motivation is pure, then the material offerings have no distinction of size or quantity. If our motivation is pure, then even if the material offering is not very large, the merit is quite great. If our motivation is impure, although you give a great deal with very abundant money and other offerings, the merit is not very great. Therefore, in the process of giving, the first thing is the mind. Whether the mind is pure or not is very important. If the mind is motivated by greed, anger, or intentions to harm others, or if one gives with a stingy attitude or with a competitive mentality, then this is giving with an impure mental attitude. Also, as explained in the Precious Garland, when the offerings themselves are impure, for example, if you give others cigarettes, alcohol, weapons, and so forth, such giving not only lacks merit, but creates negative karma. Some people even purchase meat to give to beings. In such cases, this kind of giving should be completely abandoned, except when there are special circumstances for pitiful beings. Such giving is inappropriate. Especially, for example, giving weapons like guns and knives. If those guns and knives end up killing other beings, then the person who gave them also bears some responsibility. Therefore, the categories of giving have quite significant differences. Mental attitude is extremely crucial. As stated in the Confession of Downfalls to the Certified Buddhas, even the virtue of giving 1 mouthful of food to an animal should be dedicated. When we recite the Confession of Downfalls to the certified Buddhas, it already mentions this. Actually, the content of the Confession of Downfalls to the certified Buddhas is explained in the 90th volume of Sutra of the Great Heap of Jewels. In the presence of the certified Buddhas, we begin to expose all our negative actions without concealment or hiding and confess each one individually. Even regarding animals, not to mention greater generosity, even one mouthful of food, if given job by job. For example, when I'm eating, if there's a pitiful dog or cat nearby, and I give it one mouthful of food after it eats, if I make a dedication, then this merit is very great. Therefore, as mentioned earlier, mental attitude is extremely important. Garland of Examples, adorned by poetic fancy, also states, "Not by abundance of wealth does one obtain great results. Only through supreme good intention does one obtain great results." Regarding great results in this text, I noticed in the Tripitaka it says, "great fearsome results," but fearsome doesn't seem reasonable. It's probably a typographical error. It should be great results, because if it were fearsome, meaning great terrifying results, that wouldn't make sense. Giving with supreme intention cannot possibly result in a terrifying outcome. Therefore, it also explains here that, from external appearances, someone today offers hundreds of thousands to the Sangha or gives so much money to beggars. I've heard some people when they went to India or Lhasa, perhaps to show they were particularly wealthy, scattered 100 yuan bills one by one along the road, continuously whether to beggars or not, just continuously taking hundreds of thousands and scattering them while walking. From the surface, wow, this person scattered hundreds of thousands on the road today. Some went to beggars, some not necessarily to beggars, just giving along the road. Superficially, this merit appears especially great, but actually, if it's completely for show, completely, so others think, I'm especially wealthy, I'm especially amazing, with this kind of mental attitude, the merit is indeed not very great. Therefore, it should also be explained here that even if the material offering is very minimal, if this merit is upheld by bodhicitta, if it's upheld by a truly good heart, then the merit is very great, especially with subsequent dedication. Whatever we do, whether giving protection from fear or Dharma giving, for Dharma giving, whether teaching or listening to teachings, there's always dedication afterward. When we give protection from fear through life release, there's always dedication afterward. But when we make material offerings, some people just give things and that's it. Then they don't care anymore. Especially nowadays, some people in society like to engage in charitable activities. But when doing charity, they basically just take photos with a camera and film the entire process with a video camera afterwards. There isn't even a single dedication verse. Of course, some individuals may not be Buddhist. If they're non-Buddhist, we don't require them to make dedications. But if we're Mahayana Buddhists, after doing any virtuous deed, making such dedication afterward is extremely important. We always speak about the importance of the three supreme methods. Buddha is the Lord of skillful means and great compassion. If we rely on the power of Dharani mantras and secret mantras taught by Buddha, merely offering one drop of water or one grain of rice can benefit hungry ghosts numerous as the sands of the Ganges in our world. Buddha is the Lord who possesses both wisdom and great compassion. Through his unobstructed wisdom, he left many Dharani mantras for beings, such as mantras for offering to hungry ghosts, mantras for offering to various spirits, including reciting Avalokiteshvara's mantra and Buddha Shakyamuni's mantra. And there are many mantras in collection of 100 mantras, Shurangama mantra, Great Compassion mantra, and so forth. Each mantra has tremendous function and power. Relying on these mantras, even with just one drop of water or one grain of rice or any extremely minimal food offering, the merit is inconceivable. Countless beings, numerous as the sands of the Ganges, all receive benefits to varying degrees. Throughout all of space, invisible to our naked eyes, there are countless hungry ghosts, spirits, Rakshasas, and Yakshas. Countless beings continuously fill all of space. Through mantras and reciting liturgies, they also receive real benefit. So sometimes, for example, we recite mantras by the riverside, then blow this into the water and pour it into the river. When we go to the seaside, we also recite mantras, reciting Avalokiteshvara's mantra and mantras of great merit over food and water. After this, when this water is poured into the river, many aquatic animals in the water also receive benefit, and beings touched by this water receive direct or indirect benefit. We cannot say which beings receive what degree of benefit. This is Buddha's realm, not that of ordinary people. Even the realms of arhats and bodhisattvas find this difficult to determine. Therefore, it's also explained in giving, performing white and red burned offerings brings tremendous benefit to spirits moving through space, what we commonly call the burnt offering ritual. Actually, fire offering and burned offering are quite different. Nowadays, in Han regions, when we recite burned offering rituals, everyone thinks it's fire offering. Actually, fire offering in tantric feast offerings and rituals has different liturgies. For example, when Guru Rinpoche went to Nepal previously, he revealed the neck pouch Vajrakilaya. This liturgy specifically contains a fire offering ritual. Once in northern India, it suddenly flowed forth from the teacher's wisdom. At that time, other teachers immediately recorded it. This is called fire offering. Fire offering mainly involves burning various offerings as offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. This is fire offering. What we do now, if you insist on a term, burned offering might be better, relying on the method of burning food to give to beings in the three realms, especially giving to hungry ghosts and spirits. This is called burned offering. Nowadays, I've heard some individuals, including some Tibetan Buddhist teachers, wherever they go, gather many lay practitioners and perform this on the outskirts of cities. They call it fire offering, but it's not fire offering. It's probably burnt offering ritual. When they recite this way, many outsiders, including firefighters, think a fire has broken out. I heard that in Shanghai, on top of dozens of floors of high-rise buildings, with nowhere else to burn offerings, they had to go to the rooftop. When on the rooftop, the firefighters didn't dare go up. They brought all their trucks below and started spraying water upward. Their water couldn't possibly reach such high floors. Actually, this approach is unreasonable. As I mentioned yesterday, when we perform any Buddhist ritual, sometimes we can do it symbolically. Especially in large cities, we should conform to local customs and practices. In that case, if we must do it ourselves, in a small bowl or basin, put a little bit, like modern electric stoves, put a little food to create a bit of smoke, then recite the liturgy. It's not necessary to make especially large smoke, thinking this is especially successful, then beating drums and blowing conches. When many people hear these sounds, they begin to shed tears, thinking the teacher is truly amazing. With such large flames, surely the teacher is a great master, an emanation of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Actually, sometimes we should not completely deny these practices. We cannot say they are all meaningless. In Buddhism, as explained here, when we ourselves practice, for example, when physically unwell, having nightmares or experiencing what we feel are harmful influences from spirits, during practice at such times, performing these rituals is appropriate, but this doesn't necessarily require requesting a teacher. Requesting someone who must be from Tibetan Buddhism or Han Buddhism, not necessarily. Every lay practitioner, every Buddhist can recite them. When reciting these names and mantras of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, anyone who recites them can benefit. For example, like monks transmitting precepts, it must be ordained masters who transmit them. Lay people have no qualification, but for some liturgies like these, anyone can recite them. Therefore, we cannot consider these all unnecessary, nor can we think that not engaging in study, contemplation, and meditation all day. Currently, in our Bodhi study group, some individuals perform feast offerings every day. Generally, in Guru Rinpoche's biographies and in the Nyingma tradition, feast offerings are performed on the 10th and 25th of each month. Generally speaking, monasteries have the most feast offerings, but some individuals in our study groups perform feast offerings every Sunday. Actually, they say it's feast offering, but in reality, they use this convenient method to consume more fruits and drinks. Their purpose might be this. I've previously discovered some of their hidden secrets below. It mentions performing burnt offerings. Red burnt offerings, white and red burnt offerings enable many hungry ghosts to receive benefit. This enables those fierce spirits and non-humans who originally feed on sentient life to temporarily enjoy the taste of burnt offerings and be satisfied. Originally, they kill every day, needing life to sustain their existence. But if we provide burnt offerings, they temporarily don't need to harm other beings. And through reciting liturgies and other Dharma giving, their mind streams gain liberation, thus no longer harming any life whatsoever. This removes the fear of death for many beings. Therefore, it's also a form of fearlessness giving. Our reciting liturgies just now is actually a form of Dharma giving. Then burning these foods is material giving, because through this power, they no longer kill. Those hungry ghosts no longer kill. This is called fearlessness giving. Actually, performing burnt offerings already encompasses these three types of giving. Therefore, water offering and burnt offering are actually simple, easy methods that accomplish great results with little effort. Performing water offerings 100,000 times each year and continuously performing water and burnt offerings, this is quite important. So, sometimes when we recite them ourselves, if there's time to recite daily, it's best in the afternoon, because in the afternoon is when spirits and non-humans gather, generally. In the morning, we recite other practices, looking at the essential points of retreat practice from the past. In the afternoon, especially at dusk when the sun sets, that's the best time to recite such liturgies. When reciting, generally, both drink and food should be included. Have some portion like cookies or flour on top. We recite that mantra first. Nama Sarva Tathagata Om Sambara Sambaraham. At that time, you must sprinkle some water. This is very important. Then, within this, there are 4 Tathagata names. Namo Prabhutaratna Tathagata. Actually, after reciting this name, it destroys the stinginess of hungry ghosts, enabling them from then on to be more open-hearted and able to give. Then, Subharupakaya Tathagata destroys all ugly appearances and enables these beings to obtain beautiful form. Also, Vipulagatra Tathagata. Originally, hungry ghosts have extremely narrow throats. Through this Tathagata's name, their throats expand so any food can enter. Finally, Abhayankara Tathagata enables these hungry ghost beings to be free from all fears. Among hungry ghosts, there are actually many who constantly live in a state of panic. Not only hungry ghosts, we humans too. Some people constantly seem to live in a state of great fear, anxiety, and suffering. If we have such suffering, recite these Tathagata names. They're all in our liturgy. Techin Shepa, Rinchen Mangla Chatsalo, Techin Shepa, Rabdu Dempala Chatsalo, Techin Shepa, Jeli La Chatsalo, Techin Shepa, Jipa Tenjai Yongshu Dowaila La Chatsalo, and so forth, reciting in this way. After completing the liturgy in this way, there are such merits. Therefore, if one has the conditions and all aspects are sufficient, one should recite frequently. Conversely, if one possesses many material possessions and wealth, but guards them tightly and clings to them stubbornly, reluctant to use them for meaningful purposes in this and future lives, no matter how much they have, they always think they have nothing, and frequently speak pitiful words of despair, then these people are already experiencing the karmic effects similar to hungry ghosts. Some people actually have quite good material wealth in all aspects, but they are never willing to give, never willing to let go, always grasping tightly, and often tell others, I have no money, no wealth, I'm poor. Always speaking such pitiful words, though they're not called hungry ghosts. Actually, this being is already experiencing the karmic effects of hungry ghosts. They've already obtained the same karmic effects as hungry ghosts. There's also a story in ancient fables. Two ghosts went to the Lord of the Bardo, preparing to come to the human realm. The Lord of the Bardo asked them what they needed when going to the human realm. One ghost said, When I reach the human realm, I like others to give me things. I want everything. I want to obtain everyone's possessions. The other ghost said, After I reach the human realm, I don't need anything for myself. I'll give all my wealth to others. Then the Lord of the Bardo arranged them accordingly. The one who wanted everything was arranged to become a beggar because he needed everything, wanting things every day. So he was given this job. The one who said, I don't need anything for myself, I'll give to others, became an extremely wealthy rich person. Because of his own aspiration, I don't need anything for myself, I give to beings every day. So sometimes, although this is a worldly fable, when we think about it, it's indeed like this. If a person especially needs everything, I want this, I want that, often they can't obtain it and instead become poor. If one gives generously in all aspects, then much wealth naturally comes. Many people are reluctant to give, living each day in a particularly pitiful way. Such beings are really very unwilling to give, even in this lifetime. Some have great wealth, but always feel, oh, I definitely don't have enough. What if I die later? What about my descendants? Constantly accumulating. Previously, in the Gotara Agama, there was someone called the great wealthy man Bodhicitta, who was extremely rich and died. King Prasenajit hurriedly came to the Tathagata. Buddha asked, What happened today that you came here so early? He said, In our country there was an extremely wealthy man named Bodhicitta. He has passed from this world. After he left this world, I looked and saw his wealth was extremely abundant. Not to mention other treasures, he had 80,000 pounds of gold alone. What he usually ate, wore, drank, including his transportation, were extremely poor. He was completely unwilling to spend anything. What should we do about this? Then Buddha said at that time, there's probably no way, because when he was alive, he was controlled by stinginess. Then King Prasenajit asked, Where has Bodhicitta been reborn now? Through Buddha's observation of his entire situation, he had been reborn in the hell of weeping and wailing. In such a hell where he cries every day, King Prasenajit requested, Is there any way to enable him to gain liberation? Does he have any virtue? He said no. His previous virtue has been completely exhausted by this lifetime's wealth. In this lifetime, he created no virtue whatsoever. He performed not even a bit of merit. So now he has not even the slightest virtue. He can only suffer in hell in the future. So I think, truly, some of us, though we've come to the human realm because of past life's merit, in this life, I have some wealth, some fortune. This is the virtue I created in past lives. But in this lifetime, if I have the opportunity, I should still create some merit and wisdom accumulations. If I don't do this, it'll be exactly like Bodhicitta. It's like charging a battery. The electricity I have now was charged before. I keep using it until finally all the power is gone. If I don't charge now, I'll have no way tomorrow. Nowadays, when making phone calls, if you don't charge, you can't do anything tomorrow. Similarly, if I don't accumulate any merit in this lifetime, in my next life, I'll have no virtue at all. You see, even Buddha, who is such a great compassionate one in this world, even he had no way when King Prasenajit, the king at that time, came to request, Buddha, is there any way? This person is so pitiful. Look, all his possessions are left there. And when he was alive, including to his own family and servants, he was always unwilling to give. Such an extremely stingy person. Now that he is dead, how pitiful. Can't you find a way to liberate him? He said, there's no way. He himself accumulated no merit at all. It's like this. So some people I sometimes meet are extremely wealthy. They constantly think they are very remarkable. But indeed, wealth is like a bubble, like a summer rainbow. Here today, gone tomorrow. No matter how much you accumulate, at the time of death, not even a needle and a thread can be taken. But will all of us die? We will definitely die. The time of death is not perhaps 200 or 300 years, 500 or 600 years from now. If it were like this, we could wait a while. But it's not like this. So in the brief few decades before we must leave, people sometimes build high-rise buildings when designing them. They think of 100 or 200 years. But actually, our lives can't last that long. Our lives don't even last as long as a piece of clothing. Think about how many years we wear one piece of clothing. So our lives are indeed very fragile. When you leave, indeed nothing will follow you. Only virtuous and negative actions follow. This is absolute. Therefore, it explains here, we should never be like this, but should give offerings above and below according to our ability. Making offerings above to the 3 jewels merit field, giving below to the poor and beggars. As Venerable Milarepa also personally said, take food from your mouth and give it. When we're eating, if objects for giving appear, immediately. For example, when we're eating in a restaurant, some beggars come by saying, Om Mani Padme Hum Amitabha. In Tibetan areas, they seem to do this. In Han regions, they don't recite Buddha's name. Then they come out. At that time, the food in your mouth. Milarepa's meaning is to give them part of what's on your plate. Actually, previously, in a sutra on Mahakashapa, liberating a poor mother, it also says, if one can reduce from body and mouth, sharing even the smallest portion as giving. Through the long night, one gains liberation. In future births, one becomes wealthy. The meaning is, if we share from our mouth or from simple foods, sharing extremely small portions of food with these beings. In the long night of samsara, from a long-term perspective, in the long night of samsara, we won't suffer, but will gain liberation. In all our lifetimes, we'll become wealthy and won't experience the suffering of poverty. So, the beggars and poor people we see today created no virtue in past lives, so today they've become like this. So, when we today have a little fortune, not only should we enjoy it ourselves, but also share portions with other beings. Even food from your mouth can be given to other beings. Otherwise, if one is always centered around and controlled by a selfish mind, then even if a person possessed all the wealth of the entire southern continent, they would still not be satisfied. All the worldly wealth of the entire southern continent, they would still feel very poor and constantly unsatisfied, absolutely refusing to take even a penny from their wealth for offerings above and giving below, constantly harboring the thought that when they obtain great wealth from elsewhere in the future, then they'll make offerings and give. We often think this way too. Many wealthy people, for example, if they have 10 million, oh, may the Guru and 3 jewels bless me. When I earn 30 million, I plan to make offerings and give. When they actually earn 30 million, may the Guru and 3 jewels continue blessing me. When I earn 60 million, I'll still do good deeds properly. Then they continuously continue like this. At that time, they think to themselves, I'll keep this here for now. At the end, I should have more wealth to give. They have such thoughts. Generally speaking, regarding material giving, creating merit with material wealth, this mainly applies to householder bodhisattvas, as explained in the treatise on the great perfection of wisdom. There is giving by householder bodhisattvas and giving by monastic bodhisattvas. Monastic bodhisattvas mainly give Dharma, while householder bodhisattvas can mainly give material wealth. Of course, this is speaking generally. If a householder bodhisattva has no wealth at all, they can also focus on Dharma giving. There's nothing wrong with that. Learning well from monastics is also good. As monastics, one must solely cultivate contentment and few desires, relying on deep mountain monasteries in quiet places, experiencing hardships and steadfastly practicing the 3 higher trainings of the Noble Path. As monastics, it's impossible to go everywhere seeking alms every day. I want to make offerings. I want to give. Please, everyone must give me donations. Now, there's already a sense of reversal. Many monastics go everywhere. I want to create merit. You must do this and that. And among some of these, there are particularly bad phenomena, completely not truly benefiting beings. Many are mixed with selfish motivations, and some donors are also particularly foolish. At the beginning, they continuously trust and have faith in them, then give all their property to them, and try every means to donate many other people's wealth into their hands. In the end, they go to court, suing other teachers every day, extremely troubled and suffering. This shouldn't be like this. Our Buddhist faith is actually the same as worldly matters. In the world, when finding a teacher, one must certainly observe that teacher. For example, if today I'm taking a 7 or 8-year-old child to study, when finding a teacher, if the parent is wise, they wouldn't randomly encounter any teacher on the road. When meeting a teacher, what are this teacher's virtues? At minimum, I would understand this teacher. If I really can't understand, I'll ask many people about their overall teaching quality and so forth. But now, as Buddhists, when following teachers and doing good deeds, there's absolutely no need for any observation. In a very impulsive mental state, immediately giving their wealth as donations and offerings. In the end, if not even a bit of regret is produced, oh, I've finished offering. I rest in a great perfection state. How wonderful that to be. But for ordinary people, generally, they can't achieve this in the end. So, regarding these issues, I think things are slightly better now. Many people have the opportunity to study. After studying, it's really quite good. Understanding many principles, some people are not particularly easy to fool. Not easy at all, honestly speaking. I've mentioned before that when Venerable Atisha came to Tibetan areas, it was equivalent to the situation in some cities in Han regions now. At that time, many people in Tibetan areas often made offerings to Indian monks. Whenever someone came from India, though Tibetan areas weren't very wealthy compared to India, looking at history, it should be considered quite good. So they often gave gold, grain, and such as offerings. At this time, many people in Tibetan areas didn't know how to observe teachers later Venerable Atisha, and others in various different treatises also made criticisms. So now, for most people in Han regions, indeed faith, generosity, and all aspects are quite good, including many poor schools and monasteries in our Tibetan areas. In many places, everyone giving together is very good, but there are some cases where both parties end up regretting. After we hear and see some situations, they are not very good either. But regarding this, we often say it's not the fault of Tibetan Buddhism, not the fault of Han Buddhism. Buddhism is pure. It's just that among Buddhists, some individuals' behavior is not in accordance with Dharma. I've also mentioned this before in questions and answers on Tibetan esoteric Buddhism. There are reasons on both sides. For example, when a monastic goes somewhere, this monastic's behavior may also not be in accordance with Dharma. The householder's wisdom also bears some responsibility. They didn't observe well either. Casually making material offerings to others like this is not good. Making offerings to monastics inherently has merit. But if this monastic is a false monastic, not a genuine monastic, then it benefits neither self nor others. So after we've studied the words of my perfect teacher and learned basic Dharma, we should understand basic discernment ourselves. Otherwise, having no merit whatsoever is very bad. Regarding some monastics, it's also explained here. Some monastics abandon the virtuous activities of study, contemplation, and meditation that they should be doing, and spend all day involved in worldly affairs such as business and farming, accumulating wealth through deceptive means and wrongdoing, thinking they're creating merit and virtuous actions through offerings above and giving below. But actually, this approach has no real meaning. Superficially, it appears you've gathered much wealth and are busy with offerings above and giving below all day, but actually, your methods and mental attitude are completely not truly benefiting beings. In this case, using the Dharma, making the Dharma into a commodity for trade, using Buddhism as a banner, while actually relying on Buddhism to create much negative karma oneself. This is like what Padampa Sangye Rinpoche said, if one doesn't practice Dharma in accordance with Dharma, the true Dharma instead becomes a cause for lower realms. This is very important. Many of our current practitioners truly, if they don't practice virtue properly and in accordance with Dharma, using Buddhism through a path, through a method, through a means, to begin creating negative karma, then the true Dharma instead becomes a cause for lower realms. Superficially, we might see, for example, today I'm going to seek alms to build a stupa, but actually they don't truly want to build a stupa. Using the stupa's name, they actually begin enriching themselves. In this way, using Buddhism, they themselves finally become causes for lower realms. This is particularly frightening. It exists among lay practitioners and monastics alike. On one hand, it's due to not understanding Buddhism. Some, though they understand Buddhism, may not care about cause and effect. Some are extremely stubborn and difficult to transform, completely uncaring. Let me commit crimes, let me go to hell. Particularly obstinate. For such people, there's no way. They are very pitiable. But some people are not fundamentally that bad, but because they lack wisdom and are very superstitious afterward, the true Dharma instead becomes a cause for lower realms. So regarding worldly wealth, truly, how you apply it, never let it become a cause for creating negative karma. The Sutra of the Right Mindfulness of Dharma also explains. Worldly wealth is like mountains, all is impermanent. Why create negative karma for the sake of such wealth? Why create negative karma with these riches? One shouldn't. So regardless of what kind of person we are, when using our wealth for the three jewels, we should observe well with wisdom. When others truly take the wealth of faithful donors, you can't casually do whatever you want to do immediately. It must be used specifically for designated purposes. If it's for printing scriptures, it must be used for printing scriptures. If it's for building stupas, then it must be used for such purposes. Otherwise, truly using the name of building stupas, in the end, one might use it to build other houses and so forth. In this lifetime, it might not necessarily be discovered, but in future lives, throughout all lifetimes, one will certainly repay with one's own flesh and blood. Such karmic retribution is extremely frightening, so one must definitely pay attention to this aspect. Therefore, maintaining contentment and few desires consistently at all times and places is truly precious and rare. As monastics, material giving should not be the primary focus. I want to do material giving, going everywhere seeking alms, fundraising, amassing wealth. In this way, it's not necessarily beneficial to Buddhism. Regarding teaching Dharma and spreading Buddhism, not saying a single word. The first thing when someone comes is, money, money, money. Besides money, saying nothing else. When someone comes, they also say they need money. When another comes, they also need money. In this way, it truly causes tremendous harm to Buddhism as a whole. Therefore, regarding some lay practitioners and some monastics, I hope, generally speaking, whenever we mention matters of money spreading Buddhism now becomes very difficult. This is our experience from many years, and it's indeed like this. Although there may be places where opportunities to create merit with wealth are needed, but now, especially for monastics, contentment, few desires, and proper study contemplation, and meditation. Then, using the Dharma one has obtained to benefit beings, monastics should primarily engage in Dharma giving. When householders possess some wealth and don't have a stingy mind, then you give voluntarily, not relying on others. Some people say, you must donate. Create some merit, bring it here, I'll handle it for you. Come, bring it all here, I'll go make offerings. Where is there such a thing? Each person should observe with their own mind. There's no need for this. We can say that many of our current behaviors are not in accordance with Dharma. Everyone must reform this. Vast giving means giving one's fine horses, elephants, children, and so forth, one's most beloved people or precious rare things to others, one's houses, fine horses, elephants, cars, airplanes, and so forth, offering or giving these possessions to other beings. Just like the story of Prince Great Courage, when Buddha was in his causal stage, there are some stories, some scriptures say, for example, regarding giving away one's children. Generally speaking, if there's no special intention when they are willing, one can give them to others. It's also explained this way. Below we explain. Extremely vast giving. Extremely vast giving refers to giving one's body, life, limbs, and so forth. For example, Prince Great Courage gave his body to a mother tiger. Acharya Nagarjuna gave his head to Prince Joy in conduct. Princess Mandabadri gave her body to a mother tiger, and so forth. This is body giving. We also mentioned this when explaining the way of the Bodhisattva. Generally, body giving is very difficult for ordinary beings to accomplish, but after attaining the first Bodhisattva level, it can completely be accomplished. Body giving, some give away entire limbs completely, some give heads, eyes, brain, including our organ donations. These also count as part of body. Giving here, it explains that previously Prince Great Courage, when Buddha Shakyamuni was in his causal stage, at that time became a prince, namely Prince Great Courage. The story of Prince Great Courage was previously in the White Lotus and also in the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish, and also in Jatakamala, composed by Bodhisattva Ashvaghosha. Once, Buddha went to a forest and told some of his retinue, "Do you want to know some particularly extraordinary stories from my causal stage?" At that time, many in the retinue said they were willing to know. When Buddha pressed the earth, the entire earth shook 6 times. A small stupa appeared. From the stupa appeared extremely white bone relics and ashes. At this time, Buddha began circumambulating the relic stupa clockwise. The retinue asked, "What was the auspicious circumstance?" Buddha said, "Why do I circumambulate clockwise? When I was in my causal stage, actually for me, it played a tremendously significant role." So Buddha first spoke a verse. The Bodhisattva's supreme merit diligently practicing the 6 paramitas, courageously seeking Bodhi, the great giving mind without weariness. Courageous refers to Prince Great Courage. His great giving mind seeking Bodhi was without weariness. After speaking this verse, the Sangha requested Buddha to tell the story of his causal stage. Buddha told Ananda and other retinue, "When I was in my causal stage, I became a prince. Actually, the king had 3 princes, and one day the 3 princes went to the forest. At that time, they saw an extremely hungry mother tiger that hadn't eaten anything for many days. The mother tiger had given birth to 7 little tigers. Because it never left them and constantly guarded them, it had become on the verge of death, about to starve to death. The 2 elder princes said to the youngest prince, Courageous, this mother tiger is so pitiable, it will surely die soon." At that time, the youngest prince said, "You go ahead first, I'll slowly follow behind." He generated extremely great compassion for the mother tiger and found a way to give his body to this tiger. He hung all his princely clothes on a tree, then lay his body beside the mother tiger, letting the mother tiger eat his body. But because it was too hungry, it completely lacked the strength to eat him. Later, the prince broke open the blood vessel on his neck and let the mother tiger drink some blood. After it first drank a little blood, its strength gradually returned. Once it had strength, it began eating the prince, eating him completely. After a while, the entire earth also shook. The entire palace also shook, with various auspicious signs appearing. At this time, when the two princes went searching for the youngest prince, except for some bones, the entire body had already been given away. This was when Buddha Shakyamuni was in his causal stage. The two princes at that time were Maitreya Bodhisattva and Manjushri Bodhisattva. The place where Buddha Shakyamuni gave his body to the tiger is now a place called Namo Buddha in Nepal. It seems we've been there before. When Guru Rinpoche went there, suddenly some verses and teachings flowed forth from the elders' awareness and wisdom. I've always wanted to translate them, though the content isn't much. But I think this has tremendous blessing power, so I wanted to translate it, but later I never did. 20 years have already passed. Sometimes life passes by particularly quickly. At that time, I personally recorded it right beside the stupa. Actually, this Namo Buddha near the stupa is the place where Prince Great Courage gave his body. Now, in the cave there are some murals, and above that is the tiger cave where tigers often dwelt. Actually, when we go to India for pilgrimage to Nepal, we should go there. I remember from Kathmandu, from Putana Stupa to there, is probably more than 3 hours, needing to drive for 3 hours. When we went before, it was a dirt road. I hear now there's also a cement road. That road is winding and particularly difficult to travel, but I hear now there's a cement road. From that place, you can go directly to where Guru Padmasambhava did retreat, the Asura cave where His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok revealed the Vajrakidaya Dharma. When returning, you can see the palace where the prince lived at that time. The mountain where the palace was located can also be seen along the road. Actually, this was Buddha Shakyamuni's earliest, very, very long ago, when he did this in his causal stage. Later, some histories say his bone ash and bones were made into a stupa. Now in the stupa, there are some of the prince's bone ashes at that time. Part of it is like this. Part of it, Buddha Shakyamuni later made a relic stupa to show the people. So this is an extremely wonderful Buddha biography. If we're truly Buddhist practitioners, think about when Buddha Shakyamuni was in his causal stage. When seeing an animal starving, he could give his body to it. After all, it's a living being. But nowadays, worldly people truly don't even need to mention seeing a pitiful person. I've heard some people even beat and abuse pitiful people. Such behavior seems to be a common phenomenon among Mahayana practitioners. Therefore, sometimes when recalling Buddha Shakyamuni's particularly moving stories, we who follow later, we who claim to be Mahayana practitioners, actually, our actions can be said to be very shameful. Previously, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche, around 1986 or 1987, at that time taught the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish. When the elder taught from the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish, especially during this story, it should be from the Sutra of the Wise and the Foolish. When teaching this story, it was particularly moving. Everyone felt very deeply. Afterward, I always thought that no matter what, I must go to that place to make aspirations. But later, indeed through the blessing of the three jewels, my wish was fulfilled. After going there, whenever I think of this place has now become a historical site. There is a cave in the forest, possibly nearby. It's said, the current Karmapa's teacher, Thrangu Rinpoche, when we went there, none of this existed. But now, I hear he built something particularly magnificent, with a particularly beautiful temple of Guru Padmasambhava inside. Have you been there? Yes. How was it? What was there? Buddha Shakyamuni's statue. When going to India in the future, upon reaching Nepal, one should go there. The drive costs more than 3 hours. For people going to India, this should be no problem. Some people often go to other cultural sites and other relatively famous palaces. As Buddhists, looking at palaces and such doesn't interest us much, but truly where Buddha was in his causal stage, places Buddha blessed would be extremely meaningful. One should say meaningful. Here, it also explains that when Buddha Shakyamuni gave in this way during his causal stage, also Bodhisattva Nagarjuna, we've also explained before, Also, Princess Mandabajari gave her body to a mother tiger, and so forth. Of course, these actions, except for bodhisattvas who have attained the grounds, ordinary people cannot directly accomplish them. Now, we can mentally visualize dedicating our body, life, and all material possessions without attachment to beings. We can do this now. Dedicate to beings. I can give my body when I recite scriptures, when cultivating selflessness, especially when I'm ill. Everything on my body, as long as beings need it. I give everything to beings. We often recite verses from Kusali practice. In this way, this also counts as a form of body giving. And aspiring to be able to practice this directly in the future, giving the body directly. Always aspiring. In the way of the Bodhisattva, it's also like this. Now I can't do it, but once. When I'm also like Buddha Shakyamuni, Manjushri Bodhisattva, Maitreya Bodhisattva, Nagarjuna Bodhisattva, at that time, I'll give my body without any greed or attachment, directly giving to beings without any conditions. Now I probably haven't reached this level, but at least, killing other beings for the sake of one's own body, these are all extremely unreasonable, not the behavior of Buddhists. At least understanding this point, then as much as possible not killing beings, not harming beings within the scope of one's ability, giving and helping beings. Helping beings is still very important. We ourselves cannot think we're high and mighty. I'm a practitioner, I'm a teacher, I can't. Actually, the true behavior of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, beings, have no high or low status as long as they are beings. For example, if today on the road we see an elderly person who really can't walk anymore as someone who has generated bodhicitta, you shouldn't think about your status. I'm a monastic, I can't help householders. These householders, no matter what, it can't be like this. We should all be true servants of beings, not just spoken words or in name only. As long as it benefits beings, I'm not just superficial. If the teacher sees, if the manager sees, if others see, if I get an award, I go help a bit. If no one can see, if it's unknown, I'm unwilling to do it. Behind the scenes, I'm not willing to do these things. No one can see. It can't be like this. There's no need for others to see. As long as it benefits beings, even the slightest benefit, we should do it. This is the true behavior of bodhisattvas. Therefore, body giving also has certain difficulties for us now, but we ourselves often recite some particularly blessed verses to give the body and give material possessions Dharma giving, and fearlessness giving will be explained below. Today we'll stop here.
Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye Bandara Badma Sodargye